it's not about difference for difference's sake. It's about fighting for our whole collective humanness. I knew exactly how it felt to sit alone and wish someone, anyone, would see you. Do you want to be the one who looks away, stays silent, or maybe even joins the crowd? Or the one who steps forward and says, "Stop it. Stop it now." Welcome to The Inner Edge, a podcast about leadership, self-mastery, resilience, and reinvention. Welcome back to The Inner Edge. Today, I want to share a story that I really don't talk about that much. And it's not about being an executive or a leader, and it's not about how to lead in a boardroom. It's about a little girl in second grade who suddenly discovered what it felt like to be an outsider. And I think this story may hold the most important lesson we can talk about regarding the inner edge and real leadership. Because this story that I'm about to tell you is really about how we treat difference and what happens to us, to our organizations, and to our world when we either reject difference or we embrace it. So when I was about 6.5 years old, something very unexpected happened to me. I developed what's known as a lazy eye. And so what happened was my right eye suddenly turned inward. And so it was actually turned right into the corner of my nose. And overnight, I went from being this cute little girl everyone thought was so adorable and everyone wanted to play with, all the kids wanted to be with me and hang out with me on the playground, to being called a freak. And seriously, that's the word they used. My best friend from first grade decided that I was totally different and she didn't want to play with me anymore. My classmates and upperclassmen taunted me with chants like, "Here comes the cross-eyed lion, here comes the cross-eyed lion." The teasing was relentless. And it's funny, I don't remember much from my childhood, but trust me, I remember this. I dreaded recess. I would run to the library at lunch and bury myself in books because it was safer than being on the playground. At least in the library, no one would be laughing at me or pointing out and taunting me. And I remember at night, I would sit and bawl and I would cry myself to sleep and I'd say, "Please, please, God, please help me be normal again so people will like me." And that was pretty much most of second grade. The following year, in third grade, a surgery corrected the muscle in my eye because it's really just a muscle, a loose muscle. And there I was. I was normal again. And a phenomenal thing happened. The teasing stopped. Kids let me join the jump rope games at recess. My best friend came back around and wanted to be friends. And all would seem like it went back to normal. But here's the thing. I was not the same. I could never forget what it felt like to be shunned for something I had no control over. That year was torturous. I was the same inside, but I was being taunted for how I looked on the outside. And I couldn't understand how all these other kids, and it wasn't everybody, but there becomes a group, right? So one person does something and then the group just kind of goes along. Kids who knew me could suddenly see me as less worthy of belonging just because of one little visible difference on the outside. It really changed the way I saw people forever. So once my eye was, quote, fixed, I wasn't the target anymore. But what I did start to notice is the other kids who were the target. The very overweight boy, I noticed he was teased every day. The boy who spoke with a little bit more of an effeminate voice, and he liked playing with the girls, he was constantly mocked. And the small girl with a stutter, she was laughed at every time in the class she tried to read out loud because she stuttered. And I thought to myself, and this is third grade, wait a minute, they're just like the cross-eyed lion. There I am. And so I started speaking up, saying things like, "Hey, stop it. Stop that. Don't do that. And I would sit with them at lunch when no one else would. Not because I was so brave and so good, but because I knew exactly how it felt to sit alone and wish someone, anyone, would see you, would really see you. So, why do we do this? Why do kids, and let's be honest, adults, and I don't know if there's much difference anymore, especially nowadays and in this environment, why do we react this way to difference? And what I do know from my studies in neuroscience, part of it's hardwired. Neuroscience tells us that our brains are scanning constantly for in groups and out groups, people who are like us and who are not like us. And we're wired for survival, and it's really a survival mechanism. In the primitive brain, difference can register as danger because you could get eaten or somebody could come attack you. It's something unfamiliar and it's something to keep a distance from. But here's the problem with that. That survival instinct is for the wild or if we're in some tribe, and left unchecked, it can make us cruel to other humans. It can cause us to dehumanize, exclude, and bully, sometimes without even realizing it, and we think it's justified. And if you think this is just about children in the second grade classroom, take a look around today. We see this every day, or at least I do, in our workplaces, our communities, and definitely in the world right now. People scapegoated, whole groups shunned, people mocked for how they look, for their accent, for their age, for their gender, for their beliefs. We are still that second grade playground, just bigger, just older, but the stakes are so much higher. So here's the question I wanted to give you in this episode today, and it's really the leadership question. What kind of person, what kind of leader do you want to be in that environment, in that second grade playground, which we're in? We're all in. Do you want to be the one who looks away, stays silent, or maybe even joins the crowd? Or the one who steps forward and says, stop it. Stop it now. The one who sees beyond the surface, the appearance, which is just a shell, and says, hey, I see your soul. I see your humanity. I see you and I see your worth. Because let me tell you something I've learned after coaching executives for decades. The people who make the biggest imprint are the ones who fight for others and who fight for being able to see beyond difference. Not in a performative checkbox kind of way. Oh, here, I'm doing this. But it's in simple daily moments. Who they invite to the table, who they stand up for in the meeting, who they take time to listen to, even when it's uncomfortable or even when the perspective is different. And maybe fighting for difference isn't even the right phrase. It's not about difference for difference's sake. It's about fighting for our whole collective humanness, for dignity, for respect, for connection, for the truth that beneath that lazy eye, the body size, the accent, the stutter, the age, the skin color, we are all human and we're more alike than we are different. We are souls longing to be seen, valued, and included. So I want to leave you in this episode with this reflection. Think back to a moment when you felt like the cross-eyed lion, when you were excluded, ridiculed, or unseen for something you couldn't control. How did you feel? Now think about someone in your world right now that could be carrying the same pain, someone who feels different, left out, or on the margins, or that is shunned or is scapegoated. What would it look like if you walked across the playground and sat with them? Because that's leadership. not a title, not a corner office, not bravado, not your ego, but the courage. And it takes courage, especially in the times we're living in today, to see soul to soul and to act on that seeing. Because it doesn't take much courage to bully. And if we all did that, just imagine what kind of workplaces, what kind of communities, what kind of world could we create? Thank you for spending this time with me on the inner edge. If this story resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need to hear this today, because I am sure there are people who would really need to hear this. And as always, I want you to just think about and remember this. Your presence is powerful. It can change the trajectory of someone's life. It can leave an imprint. So let's start leading with a little bit less ego and a lot more soul.